Hello, this is Joseph Treitman, or Ally 613 for those of you who know me through AVEN. And I'm here to give my personal reaction to the National LGBTQ Task Force's recent anti-Semitic statements on the Israel-Hamas war. For some context, should be established that the nature of the Israel-Palestine conflict is simply that Palestine and other Arab nations refuse to acknowledge the legitimacy of Israel and have done so ever since the prospect of the establishment of a Jewish state there was being discussed. That Arab hostilities towards Jews in the region began in the 1920s, that the ensuing war in 1948 was purely due to Arab opposition to the existence of the State of Israel, and that this opposition was reaffirmed through the Khartoum Declaration and has been maintained till the present day, and is very much a part of Arab discourse. So that is the number one problem. In the United States, many people are trying to justify this racist position by trying to say that Israel had no right to be established in the first place. Most commonly in the United States, they try to say that it is somehow inherently Arab land. We recognize similar statements as white supremacist when people try to justify gerrymandering in the United States, saying, well, the United States should be inherently white land. We recognize it's a problem there. So it should be equally problematic to make similar statements regarding the Middle East. And so the anti-Semites making those arguments, they'll say that. They'll say that the existence of Israel is due to white supremacism, or they'll try to say it was secretly some sort of colonial plot, either that the Jews controlled the British and other European governments to try to establish the State of Israel, or in a modern 21st century inversion of that, that England and other European governments were trying to colonize the former Ottoman Empire as best as they could, decided that it wouldn't be appropriate to do that, so they needed some way of justifying it. So they said, it's not us doing it; it's to help the Jews. Right? So there's the older version of Jews controlling European governments to our will. There's the modern day inversion of European governments utilizing the Jews to enact their will. But those are the sorts of arguments being used by anti-Semites to justify the overthrow of the State of Israel. The other reality to bear in mind is that in Arab countries, right, countries that are members of the League of Arab States, Jewish presence, the Jewish population, has declined by roughly 98% since 1948 and the establishment of the State of Israel. This is largely due to the environments there becoming so hostile that it forces most Jews to leave, and there is reason to believe that an Arab takeover of Israel would essentially lead to a second Holocaust. So essentially, calling for the overthrow of the State of Israel is tantamount to supporting a genocide of Jews. This sort of logic of people who advocate X are in reality advocating Y, because that is the logical conclusion, whether or not they explicitly say so. This is logic that is rightfully used in other contexts pertaining to issues impacting the LGBTQ community. The big example that comes to my mind is conversion therapy. We all get it that conversion therapy is inherently dangerous to the patients undergoing it, if you even want to use the word patient in that, but we get it that conversion therapy is inherently dangerous, that all forms of conversion therapy are naturally dangerous, and so you can't say, oh, I'm just trying to help these people through conversion therapy, not trying to cause them any harm. We get it that it's inherently harmful. And so we get it that you either oppose conversion therapy or you are okay with harmful policies towards LGBTQ individuals, and that there is no in between. So it should be pretty straightforward to expect that the National LGBTQ Task Force recognizes that regarding the proposed overthrow of Israel and harm to Jews, that you could either say that it is wrong to propose the overthrow of Israel, or you are okay with advocating the genocide of Jews, and that there is no in between. So, with all of that the proposed overthrow of Israel is a very real proposal happening in American discourse, and that it is inherently anti-Semitic and harmful to Jews. It is through this lens that we should be looking at the task force's statement, which leads with the claim that, and these are their words, the conflict is largely, or the root cause of the conflict is, according to them, fascism, white supremacy, and colonialism. Now, regarding fascism, Israel is not a fascist country. We could get into what we think it means to suggest that Israel is a fascist country, whether or not you're using fascism as just a stand-in for any opposition to the provably evil Rawlsian ideology. That's a topic for another time, but setting the fascism issue aside just because it doesn't make any sense, right? So let's dismiss, or let's decry the assertion of fascism being an issue on the grounds that it's just stupid. Trying to classify the conflict as being due to white supremacy or colonialism is flat out anti-Semitic. It is a matter of signal boosting the anti-Semitic talking points, and it does nothing other than to validate the anti-Semitic positions that Israel does not have a right to exist. The claims of white supremacy are almost entirely used by people claiming that that the establishment of a Western country in the former Ottoman Empire is somehow a matter of white supremacism, rather than what it actually was, which was looking at the demographics of how many people of which backgrounds live where, and drawing up some boundaries based on that. Then there's the matter of colonialism. Yes, Israel has been engaging in colonialism since 1967, right? It is very reasonable and accurate to describe the West Bank settlements and former Gaza settlements as colonies. But the conflict far predates that, and specifically in Gaza, Israel decolonized Gaza in 2005. They removed all of their colonies. And yet the conflict has intensified. So if you're going to try to classify the colonialist issue as Israel's colonies in the West Bank, it is drastically inaccurate to assert that this is somehow the root cause of the conflict, as even when the colonies were removed, the conflict only intensified. But more likely, what they mean is that Israel itself is somehow a white colony, British colony, European colony. This stupid logic, if you even want to call it that, is so twisted. It's really tough to try to connect the dots all that well, because the deranged minds trying to make these arguments aren't being logical enough. Stuff that seems connected in those deranged minds might not actually be connected. So, but as far as I can attempt to analyze the logic, it seems to be trying to assert that Israel's existence is an act of colonialism. That these are the main talking points of people guilty of Israel-related anti-Semitism, and that the task force has explicitly corroborated those racist anti-Semitic talking points. In terms of what to do about this, I would like to see an inquiry launched into how it came to be that the task force made such a statement, that while in general the task force is under no obligation to make a statement pertaining, single issue politics can be a thing, or they are under no obligation to make any statements on any issues other than LGBTQ issues, unless there start to become issues of people using their spaces and their platforms to make problematic statements, in which case, yeah, they should address those. I don't know whether or not that it happened up until this point, but since their leaders have made this statement, they are turning this into more than just a single issue political idea, right? That they're making an anti-Semitic statement, so they have to address the matter. So an inquiry should be launched. The parties involved in putting out, drafting, and approving this anti-Semitic statement, to my mind, should be removed from the task force and be replaced by people with more sensible positions on the topic. Thank you, and that's my assessment of the situation.